How you doing, people? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is April 23rd in the year 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. Post-game show, as always, rubinreport.locals.com if you'd like to join us for that. And we got a dense one. We got a thick one when I was on tour back in the day with Jordan Peterson, and he would really nail it on stage. You know, I was opening the show for him, then he'd give the kind of fire and brimstone Jordan Peterson hour-and-a-half lecture, and then we would do the Q&A, which was usually funnier and lighter together. When he would get off stage, if the show was good, I would always say to him, Jordan, that was a thick show. It was thick, like you had to walk through it. You know, sometimes things are thin, like you could just walk through a paper bag. But if a show was good, it was thick, like walking through butter. You got to really get through it. And that's what we got for you today. And we are going to start with Jordan Peterson because one of the things I've been talking about a little bit, yes, we're always blowing up the left here, and it has become very easy in some sense. And I don't think I'm constantly trying to decide how much we should be doing it, and maybe we just stop pointing out their craziness and focus on some other things. But I also think when you get wins, you gotta kind of really drive the point home and keep exposing it until it so has flitted away that it doesn't matter at all. So we're gonna do a little bit of leftward destruction, but we're gonna start today with the thing that is really burning hot online right now, which we've talked a little bit about this week. And if you saw our panel show on Friday with James Lindsay and Winston Marshall, we talked a bit about at the end, which is that there does seem to be a percolating, brewing movement of, let's say, a bit of extremism on the right now. And for all of these years that many of us were talking about the crazies on the left and letting the inmates run the asylum and where are the good liberals who are going to stand up against the wokesters and the collectivists, there does seem to be a bit of that brewing on the right now. And Jordan Peterson went on Rogan yesterday and brought that up. And this is really, I tweeted this out, but this is really kind of prime Peterson. Really try to listen to everything he says carefully here, because we were doing the clip in the pregame and there's like 10 different ways I can analyze this, or we could have stopped, but we're going to just play about a minute and a half clip. Listen carefully to what he is saying, and particularly note the distinction he's trying to make between a sort of psychological condition and a political position. Take a look.
I think that virtualization has enabled the psychopaths.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well,
without a doubt.
That's a terrible thing, because the psychopathic types, they're always the death of everything. Like I'm seeing this come up on the right now. So imagine this. I've been working on a new theory of political psychopathology, and I like it quite a lot.
Is this where the term the woke right comes in?
Yeah, well, Lindsay is pointing at that, but he hasn't got the diagnosis exactly right. So it isn't woke. That's not the issue. It's not exactly.
I think
one
what
level.
they're talking about is like similar types of behavior.
He is talking about that. Yeah, no, what he's pointing.
Woke just lets you clarify in your head, oh, it's like that.
Yeah, but the problem is.
It's like Antifa.
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is that argument is predicated on the claim that the ideas are the problem, like the woke ideas, for example, on the right or the left. But that's not the problem. The problem is that 4 to 5% of the population, something like that, is cluster B, that's the DSM-5 terms, histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, psychopathic, or they have dark tetrad traits, they're Machiavellian, they're sadistic. That's about 4%. Okay, so the question is, how do these people maneuver? And the answer is they go to where the power is, and they adopt those ideas, and they put themselves even on the forefront of that.
Right.
But the ideas are completely irrelevant.
Right.
All they're doing is they're the Pharisees. They're the modern version of the Pharisees. They're the people who use God's name in vain, right? As they proclaim moral virtue.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whether it's right or left or Christian or Jewish or Islam. They invade the idea space, and then they use those ideas as false weapons to advance their narcissistic advantage.
Yes.
And so then you have the problem, and the right's going to face this more and more particularly, because the left had to face it when they were in powers.
Yes.
How do you identify the psychopathic parasites, 4% of the population, who are clothed in your clothing and waving your flags, but who are only in it for narcissistic benefit?
Okay, there is a lot there. I hope you played along with all of that and really were paying attention. And we'll have Jordan on soon to unpack some of this. We're going to show you a couple other clips. But look, it's very easy for me to bang the right, right? It's very bang the left. That's what I've been doing for a long, long time, right? It's just very easy to do at this point. It's obvious, the gender people, the race people, the hysteria, all of those things. Jordan is talking about something different here. So let's try to do this as calmly and cleanly as possible. And I have no doubt that the trolls of the internet will give me every benefit known to man on this. What he's talking about, what he said is he has a new theory of political psychopathology. So he's not talking about people who purely have a set of political beliefs. He's talking about what sort of sits under their political beliefs, that there is a subset of people, and this crosses the political spectrum. We know that there are people that have sort of, let's say, some kind of mental disorder or hysteria, or he talks about histrionics and antisocial behavior, the sadists, the Machiavellian people. We know that there's a version of that on the left, right? It's always why we're trying to figure out, there are these people that are good intention. Then there are people that I always say their brains are broken. There are people who social media has ruined them that are hysterical, and then they literally don't know what gender they are, and all of this stuff. We know that on the left. But he's saying that crosses the political spectrum. So on the right, there is some version of that too. This doesn't have to do with politics specifically. There is a type of person who has grown up largely in this world, in the world on the phone and social media, who exists now not to have normal social interactions, not to build things, not to go on the adventure of life and, like Abraham, leave the tent and see what the world has to offer, but basically just to destroy everything, right? And a lot of this is done via anonymous accounts online, which I'm not against anonymous accounts. There's reasons for it, but they act in anonymity, which then weaponizes it in some sense, often act in anonymity, not all the time. But there's a certain set of people who just see whatever power structure there is, and then because of the psychological condition that he's talking about, not particularly the political position, they want to attack it. They want to attack it. And they do it in the most sort of manipulative, Machiavellian ways and all of those things. And there is some version of that happening on the right where they suddenly are also collectivists, right? The left is obviously collectivists. They don't like the individual. And now the right is starting to do a little bit of that too. This is something that I've seen, by the way, bubbling up for about a year. I haven't addressed it that much because I kind of was just letting it sit in a certain place. It seems to be bursting forth a little bit more right now. I also just want to mention one other thing, because I've seen a few people in that we've talked about this on the show a little bit in the last week. I've seen a few people say Rubin is trying to tell Rogan who he can have on the show and who he can have discussions with. That is literally 100% a 180 reverse of everything I've said about this. Rogan can have anyone on his show he wants, just like I can have anyone on my show I want. I've said you only have a finite amount of time, finite amount of resources. Like, that's what you do. Anyway, that's a little bit of a sidebar. So how do you defend against this right now, right? If the left never knew when the left went too far, if the progressives saw the soft underbelly of tolerance of liberals, and that's how they destroyed the liberals, what is it that we in this broad tent right can do to push back against sort of this psychopathic thing that now has pathogens in our political system? Well, you could try having some reputational wealth. You could try telling the truth. You could try being a good person and building out good community. Thus, when you are attacked too, and I assure you I've been through this, there will be some defenses built in. Jordan talked about that.
In the Gospels, Christ tells people to store up treasure in heaven where it doesn't rust, where the thieves can't steal it. That's reputational treasure. Right? So the idea is that if you conduct yourself impeccably, you'll develop a storehouse of reputation that will withstand all catastrophe. There's no place you can put your wealth that's more effective than that. It's the least violatable place, and that's right. It's right.
Right.
And so, but the problem is, and this is a really tricky problem, and you're touching on it, is that the reputation game can be gamed. Okay, so when your reputation rises, your serotonin levels rise, and that makes you less sensitive to negative emotion and more sensitive to positive emotion. So that's a really good deal. And what that also means is that there's a high psychological benefit to status increase, reputational increase, and a real cost to reputational decrease. So that's partly why people don't like losing face, for example, because their emotions dysregulate. Okay, so now the best way to play that game is to establish a genuine reputation.
Okay, so how are these things connected? If there are some bad things brewing on the right, people who are just like, it's all the Jews, and we're going to take over the system, and then we'll take away people's free speech, and whatever it might be. How do you defend against it? Well, we've got the political ideas to defend against it, right? We actually have it all built in. It's cooked into our system. It's called the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. It's called individual rights, right? Like that, we have those things built in. It's called equality under the law. America has the greatest actually built-in force field against a lot of this stuff. And the question is, we know that the wackadoodles on the left don't like the Constitution, but are we going to get to a place where the certain set of wackadoodles on the right won't like it either? I would just prefer we just look back at those documents, look at the Bill of Rights, look at the Constitution, look at the separation of powers, govern accordingly, and then we can all have whatever our differences are, but be respectful of your neighbor and live and let live and all that stuff. Okay, fine. But the other part of that, the non-political part of that, is what Jordan's talking about. If you have a solid reputation, if you act honorably in your relationships, in your work, and all of those things, what he's basically saying there is when the shit hits the fan, when people come after you, when the mob comes, when they try to take you out, you will be able to stand up on your own 2 feet, and you will also have other people around you that will push back against it. I think one of the things that you could sort of connect this to, let's say, the Me Too movement. When the Me Too movement, let's say it started out in a positive sense, that there were some men who did wrong things, which of course is true. And then it started just spreading and spreading and spreading. But it spread basically like a wildfire, and it took out everybody. And no one on the left knew how to stand up against it. No one knew how to say, boy, actually dating habits in the 1986 were a little bit different. And just because you tapped a woman on the butt didn't mean you raped her and something. The left did not know how to police the left. And now we're dealing with a version of that on the right. And this is where having a good name and being honorable. It's why I said the other day that, just as I said a moment ago, Rogan can put anyone on a show. Any podcaster can put anyone on they want. Of course, that is true. What I believe now is that as the alt media is ascendant, and I've had, I suppose, a little something to do with that, and as the mainstream media collapses, I think that there is more incumbent on us, there is a bigger weight on us to be truthful, to fight honorably, and all of those things. So Jordan is basically saying, if you kind of live right, you will have some of the defenses against some of this stuff. So now I want to show you a reverse version of that, and then I'll show you someone who's actually doing it. So for the reverse version of that, let's go to the left. John Legend, musician, big lefty, okay, fine. Here he is doing the reverse version of that, which is, someone doesn't agree with you, in this case Donald Trump, of course he basically is racist. It's the lowest hanging fruit, and this is what has done so much damage, because you called everybody racist to the point that no one believes anyone is racist anymore, and there are actual racists, and we should call them out when we see them. Anyway, here's Legend.
America made a decision that I strongly disagree with, and it seems that we are reaping the whirlwind right now, putting someone who is a terrible leader, especially in crisis. He's already out blaming people, misinforming people, dividing people, when a smart and responsible and good political way to handle it would have been to bring people together.
Oh, absolutely. That's what you want.
Be a comforter in chief,
Why do you think that he's latched on to diversity so much?
Oh, he's a bigot, so. It's a belief that there's a hierarchy of racial groups, and that his group is superior, genetically superior. He believes that.
Right.
Whenever he talks about competence and qualifications, any white man will do for him. Look at the last guy who was Secretary of Defense. He was a 4-star general, supremely qualified black man. And then see who he puts in after him. That's the level of bigotry that he has. Any white man is better than that.
I mean, it's all just completely reverse of the truth, right? You think Donald Trump has a hierarchy, and he's like, I want certain rules for white people and not certain rules for black people. Why he was so proud to say during his second State of the Union that there was all-time lowest black and Hispanic unemployment, and the Congressional Black Caucus sat there like this, right? We've shown you that clip a million times. Do you think Donald Trump, like there's literally no reason to think that Donald Trump is a racist other than these people's brains have been broken. It becomes a psychological pathogen that is eating away at their brains. Donald Trump, actually, dude, is the one who is trying to unite everybody, which is why he's got this wide tent movement right now. Every speech he gives, he's basically talking about all the people who love America. He's the one. I mean, I've been saying this for years, and now I think it's becoming really, really obvious. Donald Trump is the one that is basically saving liberalism and conservatism. How's he saving conservatism? Well, it's obvious, right? He's put conservative judges on the court. Look what they've done with abortion, et cetera, et cetera. Conservative things like having a border, I don't know, something like that. Those would be conservative values. We'll have more on some of the things he's doing as it relates to the family in a second. How's he saving liberalism? Well, he actually has been fighting for free speech. He does not care what you do in your bedroom. Those are individual values, right? Like it's obvious. It's obvious. But all you've got is he's a bigot and that he's lying about people and blaming people and misinforming people. It's like, okay, did you see anything that the Biden and mind melted and Kamala, did you see any of that for all those years? Were they being honest arbiters of the truth? I don't think so. Okay, so that's one version of what we don't want to happen on the right? But it has happened on the left. So now let's take a reverse example of that, which is someone who is of the left who actually does have principles. And I'm talking about RFK Jr., a man who only a year and a half ago was running as a Democrat and had nothing nice to say about Donald Trump. But then because he put his principles over party, is now in this administration and doing good for everybody, like trying to get our fast food joints to poison us, maybe just a teeny tiny bit less.
We're getting food companies now and fast food companies who are calling us almost every day and asking us, how do we do this? What do you want us to do? Will you do a press conference with us? And so we're really happy with the reception. I think they're ready to change the industry. They have children too. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. Their children are going to the same schools. They're eating the same foods as the rest of us. And I think most of them really want to have a healthier America. They want clear guidelines, and they want to know what they can and can't do, and we're going to give them that.
Okay, so let's connect this to what happened up top. If Bobby Kennedy had put all of his political beliefs at the top of his hierarchy of importance, he would have nothing to do with this administration right now. Bobby Kennedy, I literally debated affirmative action with him on this show, and I kind of did bring him around a little bit, actually. He was not for when the Supreme Court reversed the affirmative action decision as it pertains to college admissions, right? So that was definitely not in line with Trump. Bobby Kennedy is definitely not in line with Trump when it comes to abortion. I'm sure they have several other issues. Most of the people, and I did several events with Bobby Kennedy while he was running, met a lot of the people around him and a lot of his supporters and things. Most of those people were sort of, mugged liberals that were like, whoa, I can't be part of the Democrat Party. Am I part of this scary Republican Party? He did what was brave and right because he put his quest for truth, like how do we make people healthy again, the thing that's the most important to him, he put that above politics, thus entered a wide tent movement that Donald Trump, who loves America and loves freedom more than anything else, created the room for, so that it could bring in a Bobby Kennedy and you could still have the more conservative, traditionally conservative people, and it would all make sense. That is the fundamental thing that I think we should be defending right now. And it's going to be under attack. We know it's always under attack from the left, but what we want to nip is to whatever extent it's going to be under attack from the right, that there's a wide tent, freedom-loving movement with all sorts of different people who disagree on all sorts of stuff. We should nip it in the bud now before we end up like the left. That would be my prescription on that. Let's talk about home title lock, and then we'll have a bit more on Bobby and how it connects to all of this. Attention homeowners, your property could be at risk and you need to hear this. When was the last time you checked your home title, the legal document proving you own your house? If you're like most people, including me, the answer is probably never. In today's world of advanced AI and cybercrime, scammers are targeting homeowners like you, stealing home titles and putting your hard-earned equity in jeopardy. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on just one document, use a fake notary stamp, and pay a small fee to your county office. Just like that, that, boom, your home title is transferred out of your name. Stop what you're doing and visit HometitleLock.com, where you can use promo code Rubin to check your title status. Plus, with this exclusive offer, you'll receive a free title history report and a free 14-day trial of their powerful $1 million triple lock protection. Once again, go to HometitleLock.com and enter promo code Rubin to get started. You know, I was thinking during the break there that this is a bit of an odd show in some sense, because for those of you that don't spend that much time on X, or you're not like hardcore internet creatures staring at the phone all the time, you might be watching this going, Dave, I really haven't seen any of this stuff. I'm not totally sure what you're talking about. And I'm, let's say, sympathetic to that position, but that's why I'm talking about it now, because I do sense that there is something brewing. Jordan really, I think, highlighted it on Rogan, and it's important to put these fences up now to basically save freedom and America first and all of those things. So let's put a pin in that for a moment. I want to show you another clip of Jordan. I was actually with him a moment before this happened. This was inauguration weekend back in January I think he's at the Turning Point event. Here he is talking about how if you do the right thing, like if you exude some light, that actually might be passed off to some other people, and that's kind of how we fix things. And then we'll get into fixing things on the other side.
How do we get the rest of the world to really pay attention to there's so much more that happens than what's before our very eyes, and our faith and where we're headed after this?
Christians do that by taking their own faith seriously, like in all regards, including the intellectual. So that's how to do it. If you're serious enough in your belief, then what would you say? The light that you shine attracts others. Right, and so if it's not working, then maybe look to your own behavior.
Okay, so whether you are Christian or you are Jewish or you're atheist or you're Buddhist or anything else, if you pursue something true, then you will start shining. And we all know this. We all have parts of times in our life, myself included, when you're living the way you're supposed to be living, right? Like your life is kind of lined up with that voice in the back of your head, and you're doing all the things you're supposed to be doing, and you're not doing the things you shouldn't be doing, giving into your vices or whatever it might be. And then good things start happening. Like, I think that's a fundamental law of the universe. And the more you pursue that, the more you will shine, and then the more people around you will shine. And maybe that is the best defense against all the craziness that we've been dealing with. So now let me go back to Bobby Kennedy, because what has he been doing? He has been relentlessly fighting for the thing he cares most about, which is to make America healthy again. He put that above his political differences and personality differences that he had with Donald Trump, and the response to that, or the outcome of that, is that we are going to have a healthier society. Take a look.
We're going to get rid of the dyes, and then one by one, we're going to get rid of every ingredient and additive to school in food that we can legally get addressed. When my uncle was president, 3% of American kids had chronic disease. Today, it's around 60%. And these are a broad category, the ones that Marty mentioned, like ADHD, the neurological disorders, ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, and autism. All of these are injuries that I never heard of when I was a kid. They were not part of the nomenclature. We are spending as much on mitochondrial disorders like diabetes as we spend on our military budget. We can't continue to exist like this. And the problem is industry is making money keeping us sick.
That's shining the light. That's someone who deeply cares about something, walking into that narrow valley and saying, here I am, and I'm going to fight for this thing, and be damned the people that disagree with me or anything else. I'm going to figure out why we are so sick. And by the way, he is getting hate from all sorts of people, but as he gets that hate, that light that is shining is waking up a whole bunch of other people. And it is beyond politics when we think, why are we poisoning our kids? Why do we have dyes in our cereal that are for children that are also full of sugar that are completely banned in Europe. And if you want a great example of that, look at McDonald's fries. You've probably seen some version of this before, but in the US version, potatoes, vegetable oil, canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, hydrogenated soybean oil, natural beef flavor, they could try natural beef, wheat and milk derivatives, dextrose, sodium. I don't have to read all this stuff. I mean, look at all those words. Those aren't even real words. It's just letters put next to each other. And then let's compare that with the UK's version of fries. Potatoes, non-hydrogenated, is that rapeseed oil? Not grapeseed? Rapeseed oil, that seems, well, maybe they shouldn't have that in there, but okay. Dextrose, salt, cooked in non-hydrogenated vegetable oil. Can we just Google rapeseed oil? Maybe don't put images up on that, but that seems, but the point of all of that is like, okay, we've done things wrong in the past. We have an opportunity to fix them. And now we have people who are taking their reputational worth. Like Bobby has a long history of fighting for the things he believes in. Maybe you don't agree with all his political positions, but now he's taking that reputational value that he has built over the years, and he's taking it into a political machine that he was not part of and helping that machine succeed. And the more that machine succeeds, the more that America will succeed, and the more that people will actually get healthy. Here's Bobby talking about, again, why he and Trump so care about this thing, because it's deeply linked to fixing the whole freaking country.
Finally, and most importantly, I want to thank President Trump. President Trump often, says that he's going to make America great again. But he knows that he cannot make our country great again if our country is weak, if we're not healthy, if we don't have vigor, if we're not a robust people. He says that he's going to restore the American dream. And a healthy person has 1,000 dreams. The sick person only has one. And right now, there's 60% of the people in this country who have only one dream. If they can make it through a day without pain, with energy, without having to take medications. And we are going to change that for our country. And I want to thank the moms and thank President Trump for his confidence in my leadership and for allowing me to surround myself with such an extraordinary team of scientists who are going to restore transparency to this agency, who are going to do replicated science, who are going to restore gold standard science so we know what's in our food and we can eliminate it. Thank you all very much.
Guys, what a beautiful example. Remember, what was it, about a week ago when I showed you that video from the White House, and we showed you the video of all of the people around Trump, and then we stopped and we screenshot it and we pointed out the competent people that he's around. And like you see JD, and he's obviously competent where Kamala was not. And you see Marco Rubio at Secretary of State, obviously competent where Antony Blinken was not. And you see Stephen Miller, and you see Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff. You see these people who are deserving of these jobs. It doesn't mean they're going to do it all right, but people who are deserving of the jobs. Well, who's he standing with right there? He's standing with Jay Bhattacharya, who is now leading NIH. Formerly, that was Fauci, and Dr. Marty Makary, who is now the head of the FDA. And he has brought in people who actually, I don't know, seem competent and seem curious about why is it that we spend so much money helping sick people instead of figuring out why they're sick in the first place? Why is it that, what are the numbers? What percentage of American adults are technically obese? It's an absurd number. I think it's over 50%. Like, why is that? And maybe it is because we've been poisoning ourselves and the food pyramid made no sense and all of those things. So suddenly people who have reputational value, right? The same thing Jordan was talking about. How did Jay Bhattacharya get this job? He was just a guy over at Stanford in an office, most humble guy you've ever met. Well, he started saying what he thought during COVID. And then people were like, boy, this guy has the pedigree, he has the education, and he's communicating these ideas properly. Now he's going to be part of the government. He's going to take over NIH from Fauci. Dr. Makary, the same thing. 40.3% of Americans are obese. Let's think about that a little bit, because to Bobby's earlier point, if we're not healthy as a nation, like literally healthy, if we're all out of shape and depressed and sad and pathetic and walking down like this, we are vulnerable as a nation, literally vulnerable. So here's FDA head Dr. Marty Makary talking about how, yeah, we're also going to get petroleum food dyes and other things out of our market by next year.
This administration is not interested in continuing down the path of doing the same old things as we watch our nation's children get sicker. We need fresh, new approaches. Cancer and diabetes in young people is going up at an alarming rate, and nobody seems to know why. So today, the FDA is taking the following steps. Number one, establishing a national standard and timeline for the food industry to transition from petroleum-based food dyes to natural alternatives. Number two, initiating a process to revoke authorization of synthetic food colorings, including those not in production, namely citrus red number 2 and orange B, within the coming weeks. Number three, taking steps to eliminate the remaining 6 synthetic dyes on the market from the U.S. food supply, specifically red dye number 40, yellow dye number 5, yellow dye number 6, blue dye number 1, blue dye number 2, and green dye number 3 by the end of next year.
Guys, all good. These are poisons that we give our kids in cereal, that we all eat in cookies and in ice cream and all of these things. And there's other ways to do it. Like when we make things for the kids, instead of using these dyes, which are very super easy to do if you're making a muffin or you're making ice, like icing for a cake or something, you can use things like pea powder that have color in it. So you can suddenly get blue without using blue number 72 or some of these things that are actual poisons. Like you can do it and then we will all be healthier. And when our bodies are healthier, our minds will be healthier too. And when our minds are healthy, we'll be able to analyze information in this new in this new information war that we are all in, and maybe not go completely insane. And then what will happen? Well, then maybe we could build institutions that wouldn't fail us the way our previous institutions have. And how did our previous institution fail us? Well, they failed us because scientists were not allowed to ask questions. So the new head of NIH, not Anthony Fauci, but Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, he's over there right now, and he's a scientist, hot diggity damn, interested in science.
So I just wanted to make a couple of comments about the role of the NIH in all this. One of the major problems that I think that parents around the country have faced is when they go to the scientific literature, they come back with a stone wall. They hear that, well, the science hasn't been done, it's not rigorous. And part of the problem is that scientists are afraid to ask questions, basic questions that parents want answers to. Secretary Kennedy has asked me to, for instance, to initiate a study on autism, the cause of the rise in autism. It's a question that is at the front of the minds of so many parents across the country worried about their kids. And yet, scientific progress on this has been slow because scientists are frankly scared to ask the question. The goal of my leadership at the NIH is going to make it so that those questions are no longer taboo among scientists.
Again, guys, you see how different everything is than it was a year ago. Anthony Fauci, in many cases, literally did not know what he was doing or made it up. 6-foot social distancing completely made up. He knew that masks didn't work, et cetera, et cetera. But think of all the people that were kicked out of their jobs, that the litany of things, we don't have to go into it right now, that they did to young people and old people, and the nursing homes and all of the stuff, and not going to work, and who's essential and who's not, and just the psychological assault that they did to all of us, right? Like that we're going to one day, 30 years from now, I'm going to try to explain to my kids what it was like for those 3 years under COVID. Well, a few people did have a cough, so we could go to a restaurant and I could walk into the restaurant, but when I was walking, I had to wear a mask. But then I could sit, I could take the mask off, and then the waitress would come up to me and she'd have a mask on, but I usually couldn't hear her when the mask was on. So she would pull the mask down to tell me what was really on the menu and then put the mask up, and none of that. It's a weird thing that we're going to have to unpack, and the wounds of that are going to stick with us for a long time. But I think there are ways to heal those wounds. But first, let's heal some wrinkles. Do we have an ad for wrinkle filler? We've been told our whole lives that wrinkle creams were the easiest way to look younger. Now, one doctor says that's nothing but old news. According to Dr. John Lake, the world-renowned Beverly Hills beauty expert, most wrinkle fixes on the market are nothing but glorified moisturizers. They hardly make a dent on your appearance, and some can even be harmful to your skin, he said. Recently, Dr. Lake has focused his attention away from mainstream cosmetic practices. Why? So he can pursue a revolutionary anti-aging breakthrough, one that some experts say could empty the wallets of the cosmetic industry. It's almost like Photoshop for your face. You may even be mad after seeing how easy it is to visibly erase your wrinkles from view, Lake told reporters. His personal clients have dubbed his new do-it-yourself technique the age rewinder method because it can take years or even decades off your appearance in under 2 minutes. In light of this amazing breakthrough, Dr. Lake has released a step-by-step video to the public, free and uninterrupted, where he outlines exactly how to use this simple solution from home. You can find out more about this yourself right now. Go to bhmd1.com/Rubin or click the link in the description box below. That's bhmd1.com/Rubin. Again, go watch the video at bhmd1.com/Rubin right now, or just click the link in the description box below. All right, so now let's jump back to the people doing it wrong for just a second, and I want to show you a condensed version. It's only a quarter of the video we just showed you. This is John Legend, once again, claiming that Trump believes that the white race is superior. You'll see why we're doubling down on this.
Why do you think that he's latched on to diversity so much?
Oh, he's a bigot, so... It's a belief that there's a hierarchy of racial groups and that his group is superior, genetically superior. He believes that.
Okay, so there's literally no evidence, as you know, that Donald Trump believes that. Is there evidence that some people believe that? Sure. Are there some people on this right thing that we're talking about that believe that white people are fundamentally, genetically or something better than black people and Latino people and Jews and Asians and everything? Of course there are, right? There are actual bigots in the world. That is a real thing. The beauty of America is we set up a system that largely pushes the true bigots to the margins, right? You don't arrest them, you don't stop them from speaking, but you largely can push them to the margins because most people actually care about freedom. If your head is on straight and you are healthy and you're able to think about things and the institutions haven't failed you, so you've learned the proper things and everything else. One of the guys who I think has done that quite beautifully is a Canadian, believe it or not. His name is Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. We play clips of him all the time. And here he is talking about how Trump is doing so many good things, but there are just a certain amount of people who have TDS. They are just broken. And if they could just get over it, I could maybe mention a guy like Bill Maher, then maybe things could turn around.
The one thing I would say that I've noticed as I do business all around the world, in the Middle East and in Europe, 50% of the people in the world have Trump derangement syndrome. And they still have a really hard time understanding why he's back in the White House. And I say to them, listen, it doesn't matter. He's in the White House. We have to deal with the policy, not Trump, the policy. Let's forget about the fact that he's in the White House. There's nothing you can do about it. He was elected with a majority. Let's get over the derangement syndrome. Let's focus on the policy and get stuff done. Because I got to tell you, there's a lot of people that go out of their minds just the fact that he's back in there. And I realize it. It is what it is, but I've got to deal with it too. I mean, I just have to deal with policy.
Right. So if we just look at policy, if you can remove whatever someone's fears might be about Donald Trump or what, because they've been brainwashed by the machine or whatever, and we all know people that still are suffering from this thing. If you just look and you're suddenly like, oh, America is a little bit safer, and oh, we actually are suddenly making sure that boys aren't beating girls in sports, and we can do the laundry list of things, then you might go, this is actually pretty good. And you won't be there like John Legend being like, yes, he's some sort of race realist. And that is really what we're trying, I think, what would be the best thing we could do at the moment to, again, continue a wide tent, America-loving movement. We're going to have to fight the media, we're going to have to fight the trolls and everything else, but that's the way to do it. Otherwise, you end up like a woman who I used to like. A woman who one time at Blondie's on 72nd and Broadway, I once had wings with. Wings and a beer. I haven't had beer in a long time, but I once had wings and a beer with Rosie O'Donnell at Blondie's on 72nd and Broadway. But I don't think we're ever going to do that again because she has literally fled the United States and moved to Ireland because of Donald Trump. Here she is explaining that yesterday.
Says, you know, some people entertain the idea of moving abroad after the 2024 election. You actually did it. Tell us about your experience so far, and do you have any regrets?
I have no regrets. Not a day has gone by that I thought it was the wrong decision. I was welcomed with open arms. I knew after reading Project 2025 that if Trump got in, it was time for me and my non-binary child to leave the country. And although I was not one of the celebrities who announced that that's what I would do, I made the decision within my family and my therapist. And should he win, and then when he did, we made the plan into action, and we were gone before he was inaugurated.
All right, so first off, look, Rosie, even though you didn't announce it before, you did what is apparently congruent with your beliefs. So I will give you credit for that. There's always all these celebrities that are like, I'm moving if Donald Trump becomes president, and very few of them actually do. You actually did it. Ellen DeGeneres did it. The mind of the lesbian is a mind that will take them across the world to flee Donald Trump. So I will give you credit for doing something that's congruent with your beliefs. As for the part that probably got all your ears perked a little bit, she has a non-binary. First off, no one cares that she's a lesbian. Donald Trump is not coming for the lesbians. Like, I'm guessing Donald Trump actually likes lesbians in some sense. So, which guys used to like lesbians? That used to be a thing. It was cool. You know what I mean? That was cool. Connor's going. Sorry. I enjoy the lesbian. I'm red-blooded like everybody else, and I'm fine with lesbians. Sorry. But so she's a non-binary child. I don't even know what she means by that exactly. It does appear, we just checked, that I guess her child does have autism, which, God bless that child. And I'm sure Rosie is doing whatever she can to help that child. But if part of her calculation moving was because somehow Bobby Kennedy was going to head HHS and he's somehow insulting people with autism, he's trying to figure out why these children have grown up with autism. But again, credit where credit is due. You're putting your money where your mouth is. Now I want to jump. I don't love these clips of crazy wackadoodle lefty celebs, but this one, I saw this yesterday, and then it reminded me of something that happened during COVID. There is a legendary actress. If you're not a Broadway person, you might not know her, but Patti LuPone is a legendary Broadway actress. She has been for many, many decades. And here she was interviewed. She's a lefty, obviously. Here she is interviewed about how we seem to be unable to speak with each other. And then we'll show you something after.
What I don't understand about all of this in this country is that we can't seem to have a dialogue, a diverse dialogue, or a dissenting views dialogue in this country. You are labeled a communist. You are labeled a fascist. You are labeled, as opposed to, and I remember I sat when I was doing Les Mis in London, Roger Allam, because that's when they had the Workers' Revolutionary Party. Oh, sure. And I sat in a Chinese restaurant with Roger Allam, and one was a communist, one was in the Workers' Revolutionary Party, one was a Republican, another was a monarchist. And there was a dialogue of views, and nobody was looking over their shoulders saying, I'm reporting you to the government. No, and I just feel as though we are in a situation where, and it's not, this isn't recent, but that we cannot have that conversation.
Okay, so that's very interesting, Patty. And I do love the fact that back in the day, you could have the communist and the monarchist and the conservative, and everybody would talk. By the way, that does happen in certain places still. I've got plenty of friends who are all over the political map. But that is interesting that you said there. And by the way, I'll be happy to have you on, Patti LuPone. You want to talk about whatever our political disagreements are? I'm more than happy to do it. I truly mean that. But you say that you can't have dissenting view conversation anymore. Well, interestingly, we found this one. This was one of my favorite, and by favorite, I mean like most horrific moments during all of COVID, when they finally opened things up a little bit, and the actors on stage, because this is science, the actors didn't have to wear masks, but they demanded that the people in the audience have to wear masks. I guess because the actors are on a stage, the people are a little bit below them. The people then also were allowed to drink their Perrier for a moment if you took your mask down, but if you took your mask down to drink your Perrier and then left your mask down, then you would be escorted out. Anyway, she was doing a Broadway show at this point in COVID, and let's just see how she feels about people who had perhaps a slightly different matter of opinion than she did.
Over your nose. That's why you're in the theater. That is the rule. If you don't want to follow the rule, get the f*** out. Who do you think you are that you do not respect the people that are sitting around you? Pay your salary. You pay your salary. Who do you think you are?
So there, I mean, it's just perfect. It's just perfect. Anyway, the point of showing you that is that's what we don't want to become, right? Like these people have been broken. She's now sitting there with, what's his name, George Clooney. Like, why can't we have decent, honest conversation? While she had the temerity to be on stage without a mask lecturing people who actually do pay her salary because they bought the tickets to the show. And this is the thing that we must fight. And of course, it's not stopping. You know, we've shown you a bunch of clips lately because I'm enjoying the Democrat civil war. I'm going to do my damnedest to make sure there isn't a Republican civil war, but I am enjoying the Democrat civil war because it is a party that needed to burn down, and the refugees are now being part of the wide tent Republican thing. I've been enjoying these clips of James Carville as he's been fighting with David Hogg and the more radicals. James Carville, who in some sense, he's basically on his way out of the party, but as he goes out and he looks back and goes, man, maybe I should have defended liberalism a little bit better. Every now and again, he says something sane like, oh, you guys are all radical. And then he also says something completely insane, which is, well, it's Trump and Hitler.
Michael McConish, who's a guy I go to this show. He's a very personal guy. He's a Philadelphia guy. He said, well, he's not, you may not like Trump, but he's not Hitler and shouldn't be treated that way. Okay, well, this is my question to Michael McConish. Do we wait until he's Hitler? At what point do you say this guy is a threat to whatever? Or I'm going to quote the great Barney Fife, nip it in the bud. That's what I say. Nip it in the bud.
You know, there's a phrase, scratch a liberal and you find an authoritarian. That's it right there. Do we wait till he becomes Hitler? How about, yeah, let's wait, because he's not Hitler and he's never going to turn into Hitler. So let's wait, because you'll be waiting an awful long time. You may not have much time left on this mortal coil, James, but come on, man. Let's wait. No, I think he's Hitler. So what are you saying? So I think he's Hitler. We're not going to wait. What are we going to do? Well, we could try to, impeach him twice. That didn't work. They tried to assassinate him a couple times. What are you offering up this time? He's not Hitler. As a matter of fact, he has Jewish grandchildren. Dwight Schrute, one of the great characters in all of television from The Office, which when I'm not watching Seinfeld, that is the other sitcom that I can still watch these days. It's the one thing I watch on all the plane rides that I'm on, was played by an actor, was played by a human. Dwight was the character, played by an actor, Rainn Wilson. Here he is, he has his podcast, and he brought on MSNBC 13's Stephanie Ruhle, and they were talking about Trump and Musk and misinformation and the lack of faith in mainstream media, and I think there's a couple interesting things here. Take a look.
40% of Americans don't trust mainstream media. Why is that? How did we get here?
Listen, we are seeing a huge loss in trust of all of our institutions. It's the media, it's medicine, it's banking. It's a huge problem because when you think about democracy and all of these pillars, they need to stand tall, they need to stand strong. And sort of losing that trust is not by accident, it's by design. Mistakes made or things starting to slip while at the same time there's a concerted effort to destroy the media. Because the media, the news media is, in my opinion, the last line of defense of holding power accountable, right? And you had a bit of a perfect storm, right? President Trump won and tons of people were shocked or angry or frustrated and they're tuning out. And at the same time, you have the Elon Musk media machine because they want you to leave traditional media and they want you to go to X, which is a bastion of misinformation where there is no fact checking. Yes, you're not incorrect that the media has lost trust.
This is where I would push back. When I see this kind of insight and passion being directed at the current administration and the lack of this kind of insight and passion being directed at the previous administration, where, again, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about left-leaning news media organizations were kind of like, la, 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 everything's fine. Look, the economy's great, la, 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 immigration's not that much of a problem. And really being Cleopatra, queen of denial. Thank you. Boom.
I would push back on immigration.
All right. So I don't know too much about Rainn Wilson's politics. I think he's somewhat of a lefty or something like that. But again, Dwight Schrute beet farmer, great man, you know, did a lot of great work and helped Michael with a lot of problems over the years and all sorts of stuff. But he did hit on something, right? At the end, he hit on something that, well, maybe it is that you guys were pretty bad and you hit a lot of shit for the 4 years, so maybe you should get that mirror, perhaps, that I'm always talking about, Ruhle. Maybe you want to get the mirror and look in the mirror and be like, oh, so she says, well, there's a problem with media, medicine, and banking. Well, media, you're part of the media. Stephanie Ruhle, if you're watching the show today, you and your network lied repeatedly for over 4 years about, we can do a laundry list of things, let's just say very fine people. Okay, that was the major one that you lied about, that Barack Obama even lied about the day before the election. Medicine, you on your network, your very network, MSNBC 13, you had Rachel Maddow on, who you guys paid $25 million to do a once-a-week show. I wish I could get that gig. I'd be out of here faster than that. That would be it. You know what she did? She said, you will not get nor transmit COVID if you get the COVID vaccine. I don't think she was fact-checked on that. Then she also says that X doesn't fact-check. Actually, X has community notes. They do fact-check. You guys don't fact-check. And then she also brought up banking, and it's like, okay, well, you guys all obviously defended too big to fail. We had banks. They were about to fail. And then what did we do? We pumped them up, made them bigger, and now there's less of them. So now there's less banks that are too big to fail. I think we dealt with that properly. Let's go to Scott and the retards.
Hello, Scott, has taken advantage of this situation, I think, quite cleverly, quite wisely. They've played into a weakness.
What situation?
The situation of media being under attack. And so they've created a situation where...
You've almost got it. Keep going. What the right wing is taking advantage of is finally the American people saying enough is enough. They're tired of feeling like the mass media screens out one viewpoint versus another in political coverage. They're tired of media institutions favoring one party over another. They're tired of narratives over factual stories. If I had any advice for 60 Minutes or anybody else, it would be just cover the news and try to be fair about it and stop putting your finger on the scale.
Yes, Scott. And that is why you are not one of the retards. It's Scott and the retards. The media has, that is a clip that Stephanie Ruhle should see herself. The media lied about all of this stuff. Now you're wondering why we don't trust the institutions. And to get this to the top of the show, it's a damn shame. Because when people stop trusting the institutions altogether, countries need institutions, right? We need things that we can look to and have some basic level of trust in so that we can function as a society, right? Like, it's one thing, you're in your own home with your own family. You have a certain set of rules and a belief system and whatever, right? And that can work at times and not work at times, but that's how it works in your own home. And then you have a neighbor and you have a community and you have a city and you have a state. But within that, you need institutions that provide some level of services for the people to make sure we don't have, let's say a crazy pandemic outbreak. But if instead what they do is make you crazy during an outbreak that perhaps they even started at a Wuhan lab, well, then they break our trust. And when the media breaks our trust, then people start believing all sorts of crazy things, which is partly connected to what Jordan was talking about at the top of the show. That's why it's so dangerous what these people did. They lied to us about so many things, very fine people, COVID, all of the rest of it, that now everyone is just like questioning absolutely everything. And because we've become atomized, what was the word that Jordan used in the top of the Rogan clip? Not atomized. He said something else right at the top of that Jordan clip. We've become something, find that first word he says right at the top. But I'll use the word atomized, that we all are, what did he say? Virtualized is what Jordan said, meaning that as we all go off into our own corners and just say, okay, this is true and this is what's in my world, and keep everything out of our world. Like, if we don't have institutions that we can trust that will actually help us all have some co-truth, right? There's only one truth, but enough of us have to believe in it, then the whole freaking thing will fail. We'll have some people who would love it to fail in just a moment, but first, Rumble Premium. Free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to back down. We've always believed in empowering voices, no matter how unpopular, and now we're taking that fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their backs. But we're not here to fit a mold. We're here to defend free expression. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from creators like Russell Brand, Dr. Disrespect, Timcast, and the Mug Club with Crowder. It's more than a subscription. It's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off the annual plan using promo code Rubin. Visit rumble.com/premium/Rubin and claim your discount today. Whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching, your support helps keep free speech alive. Okay, so if you are broadly on the right, whether you're new, whether you're a disaffected lib, whether you've been hanging with the Republicans and smoking the cigars and all that stuff for a long time with the whiskey, although we're going to try to get you to have some tequila, which I'll have more on soon. The tequila is in America. It is coming out. Yes, yes, yes. What you don't want to do is become what the Democrats have become. And the Democrats have become a party of radicalism that never defends America, never defends our citizens, always takes the side of the bad guys, whether it is a Hamas supporter at Columbia, whether it is an illegal gang member who, say, beat his wife with a boot. Those are the people that they're really into. Ayanna Pressley, who is, she's one of these squad members, like far left progressive, just never will say anything positive about America or anything else. She is here. Well, here she is. It's a quick clip. Can I just talk through it? Because there's not much audio. I'll just talk through it. Here she is. Look at her. She's at an ICE facility and she's looking. She's a very serious woman. She's at an ICE facility because that's where Mahmoud Khalil is. He was one of the pro-Hamas protesters at Columbia, who was getting in people's faces, making sure that certain people couldn't get to campus, that they were taking over buildings. They did hold a janitor hostage. He was Latino. Nobody seems to care about that. But there she is. She's a very serious woman over there doing that. Another representative, she's from Michigan, right? Arizona. Representative Yassamin Ansari. She went on Fox to talk about, well, it was supposed to be talking about what's going on with this Venezuelan gang member and everything, but of course not Venezuelan, this El Salvadorian gang member. And of course it turned into, well, yeah, Trump's a bad dude.
Before we go, Congresswoman, also in Maryland, I know American citizens and crimes committed against them might not be a top priority. It is for this show. An illegal alien from Guatemala was just charged with his girlfriend's murder. In Maryland, same state, of course, Mr. Abrego-Garcia is from. She was missing for 2 weeks, mother of 2 young kids. Police found her buried in a forest. Do you know about this story? Do your constituents care about those victims? And do you intend on calling that family, since Maryland residents are obviously a concern in some way, shape, or form for you and all the people of your state?
These questions are a distraction from the main issue, which is that Donald Trump is defying the Supreme Court of the United States, and every American should be concerned about this.
Congresswoman, I know you can't mean that, and I'm not trying to play gotcha here. I know you don't
every
mean
American,
that American
Laura, every
citizens
American should
are distractions.
No,
their victims aren't distractions.
You are changing the subject. Today, we are here to talk about the lack of due process for an individual who was illegally deported from this country. That is the subject of this interview. Any other act of violence.
But Congresswoman, I've given you, just so everyone understands. Yeah, well, the violence committed by illegal immigrants against innocent Americans and legal immigrants has been appalling.
It is devastating.
Yeah, it's devastating, but you guys won't do anything about it. And you guys are the ones who let all these people in, and you didn't say jack shit. So what about the due process for the people who've been murdered? What about the due process for the people who had a son die of fentanyl, or who just are a little bit concerned when they're walking down the street because there's suddenly all of these illegals there? How about that? You guys didn't care about any of that. As a matter of fact, you did everything possible to run cover for it, as 12 to what we think now could be as many as 15 million people came into the country in 4 years. So that's it's just a perfect example of the shell game that I'm always talking about. There are real issues that real Americans care about. That's why Donald Trump won the election. One of those issues is that we want America to be for Americans. It doesn't mean America has to just be for one type of skin color or ethnicity or something else. America has to be the very thing it was founded upon, which is that if you are an American citizen, what do you get? The right to pursue happiness, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not the guarantee of happiness. But we will get the government off your back enough which is what most of our ancestors were fleeing, wherever they came from. They were always fleeing authoritarian governments. And we created a system here, a system that a guy like Elie Wiesel, we showed you that Mistel, we showed you that that loser, chocolate-filled loser yesterday, hamburger, hot dog-filled loser, who said that he wants to burn down the Constitution basically because it was written by old white men. Yet those old white men created the country that allows for more people to live freely than any other place ever. And why don't the Democrats care about that? Why do they only care about the laws when they think the laws have something to do with protecting gang members? Here's Stephen Miller.
No court in this country, least of all a district court, has the power to compel the president of El Salvador to free one of his own citizens, an illegal alien in our country who's a citizen of his country, a subject of El Salvador, who under El Salvador's laws is also a terrorist in our country, a terrorist in his country. El Salvador is not subject to the court rulings of the United States. To suggest they are would be preposterous.
Yeah. They said
but that's the bottom line. He is in the custody of El Salvador, a sovereign country.
Right.
He's not in our custody. But Laura, you have the entire Democrat Party that is in love with this gangster in El Salvador who beat his wife, who's a member of a terrorist organization, who has code for MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. And you've seen the amount of coverage, the amount of discussion over this one illegal alien gangster. What was the reprieve for Americans who watched their communities get occupied by these foreign gangs? Where was their due process? Where was their rights? Where was the media and where were the courts when their loved ones were getting beaten, raped, and murdered? That's who President Trump is fighting for, not foreign terrorists, Americans.
Yeah, this is just when we talk about the 80-20 stuff that Trump grabs. Why are the Democrats doing this? Now let's show you something here. We'll do a little thought experiment right now. We're going to do a thought experiment. How many shows on MSNBC, on CNN, on all of the networks, how many left-leaning podcasts are going to show you this video? This is a video from a Chicago suburb. And as you know, the Chicago in the city itself, how many people were killed in Chicago this weekend? Let's get the numbers while we show you the video on that. Chicago, which has some of the strictest gun laws in the entire country, also leads the country in shootings virtually every single weekend. But if the Democrats care so much, they seem to care very much about illegals, but if they want to show us how they also care about actual citizens, people that vote for them and live in their cities, well, here's a couple standing right in front of their house. You'll see it's in a very nice suburb of Chicago, and watch them get robbed at gunpoint. And let's see how many shows on the left point this out. How many cable network news shows show you this clip? How many senators will show up to their house to defend them?
You got it. Here, take it. Take everything. Take everything. Take everything. Take everything.
You will not find one Democrat talking about that, right? Why not? Well, the racial component works not in their favor, right? Because it appears to be black assailants and it appears to be white victims. But putting all of the race stuff aside, shouldn't Democrats care that in their city, Chicago's been Democrat run for, basically 100 years. Illinois is a blue state. They were in the suburbs, so I don't know if their specific suburb is Republican or Democrat, but it doesn't even matter. Why wouldn't Democrats be showing up to Chicago and saying enough of this? By the way, 18 people were shot in Chicago this weekend, 4 killed. And the only reason you're not going to hear about that is because of the racial makeup of that too. That is just a sad reality. So where are we at with all of this stuff? Well, we've got to push back against the liars. So we're going to show you a clip of The View. Sunny Hostin, the most racist woman on television, she's very upset that Donald Trump has not thrown Pete Hegseth under the bus, right? There was the signal thing. It's very serious. Pete Hegseth is a bad dude. I 100% back Pete Hegseth. I 100% back Donald Trump backing Pete Hegseth. I think he's cleaning up the military. We talked about it yesterday. We're having record high amount of people trying to get into the military now as we're raising the standards again, because we had lowered the standards because the Democrats and Biden had basically gutted the military. Here is Sunny Hostin. She's very upset that Pete Hegseth is not being fired by Donald Trump, and she tries to make a comparison that does not work out that well.
there's quite a double standard because he's standing by Hegseth. But if you remember, he sang a different tune when he called for America's first black defense attorney, Lloyd Austin, appointed by President Biden in 2021, to resign after he failed to disclose that he had undergone a surgical operation to treat prostate cancer, and he was kind of gone for about 4 days. I'm not saying that that was good either, but I don't think those two things are the same because Trump said Austin should be fired immediately for improper professional conduct and dereliction of duty. If that was the case then President Trump, that's the case now.
Okay, lady, let me clean that up for you. First off, it has nothing to do with race. Of course, she makes a point that Lloyd Austin was black. Nobody cares about that. Well, you people care about it, but we don't care about it. Lloyd Austin had surgery and apparently did not tell anybody about it. So our Secretary of Defense was missing for a couple days and they did not tell anybody. That is why perhaps you might fire somebody. If the Secretary of Defense has a serious health issue and is going to be in the hospital, oh, and by the way, the president was mentally incapacitated, you might want to know that somebody knows how to turn on the lights over at the DOD. You might want to know that, but okay, fine, you want to make it about race. And now here's Whoopi. Back in March, here she is, when this happened with Lloyd Austin, explaining that he doesn't have to tell anybody when the story finally broke. So he had disappeared for a couple days. The story broke that he was missing, that we were basically missing the head of the Defense Department. And then here's Whoopi explaining that he shouldn't have had to tell anybody anything.
Everybody should know about
I think it's a little. I think it's very similar to when the Defense Secretary Austin was ill and didn't disclose it.
See, I think, but they did disclose. I'm sorry, baby. They did disclose it.
Well,
they did. They told. They went to the. Well, when he went to the hospital and found out what it was.
But it wasn't right away.
He made. Well, who tells stuff right away until they know?
Well, this has been a long time.
Yeah, but I think.
What? Who tells stuff right away until they know? Well, if you're the head of the Department of Defense, and that's a pretty important job, that's a pretty big gig, right? We'd put that in, I don't know, that's a top 10 gig that you could get if you're in the government, and you're going to the hospital and you're not going to be on your cell phone, and you might, somebody might reach out to you and go, boy, they got the bomb, we've got a few minutes. You might want to let somebody know, but of course they did not do that. But what they do is flip on literally everything. What is good when they're doing it is bad when Trump's doing it. What's good when Trump's doing it is bad when you get it. You get it. That's how it works. Here's a little video juxtaposing Elizabeth Warren 2024 on interest rates versus, and who was president in 2024? Yeah, well, I don't know who actually was president, but there was an old man who sat at a desk that said he was president. Her feelings on interest rates in 24 versus her feeling on interest rates in 25 when a certain orange man is president.
He waited too long. And the best way you can show that you waited too long and that you get it and that you are becoming more responsive to where we are on interest rates is actually go ahead and do a nice big rate cut. Keep in mind that keeping those rates high, as he has done, keeping those interest rates so high, actually has contributed to our measure of inflation. The infrastructure that keeps this stock market strong and therefore a big part of our economy strong and therefore a big part of the world economy strong is the idea that the big pieces move independent of the politics, that somebody is making her best decisions economically and independently. We understand that if the New York Stock Exchange, if interest rates in the United States are subject to a president who just wants to wave his magic wand, this doesn't distinguish us then from any other two-bit dictatorship around the world.
Well, you're two-bit, that's for sure. So yes, when her guy was in charge, take the rates down, do what you want. You're in charge, you're the president, do it for political purposes. Now that Donald Trump might actually take the rates down, and now that the economy is being reordered thanks to the threat of tariffs, which turned out not to be so terrible, and we're getting all these deals coming in right now, and within 90 days we're going to know where we're at with all that. Now that Donald Trump wants to lower interest rates now. It becomes just the whim of a crazy person, blah, blah, blah. Well, that crazy person, Donald Trump, he's also into Americans having kids. And that used to be a thing that everybody would have been for. But now that Trump's about to do this, you know the left is about to come out completely against children, too. They've been into chopping children's genitals off, and they also like murdering preborn children. But now watch this. This is from Colin Rugg. Just in, President Trump is considering issuing a $5,000 baby bonus for mothers to increase birth rates, according to the New York Times. The White House is reportedly coming up with strategies to tackle declining birth and marriage rates. In addition to the $5,000 baby bonus, the administration is considering reserving 30% of the Fulbright program scholarships for married applicants or those who have children, according to the report. U.S. birth rates have been declining for years, with 2023 seeing a record low of just 55 births for every 1,000 women. So we'll do more on this over time. But look, there's a philosophical argument to be made that the government shouldn't be giving people money for this. If anything, we've done things in the past, and we all know this, like when you file taxes. If you get married, because marriage and family is the fundamental building block of a functioning society to go from generation to generation, the government does give you tax benefits, right? So if you file as a single and then you file as joint, you have certain tax benefits. You can write off certain things as it relates to your children and all of those things. Maybe there's a different argument to be made. Should the government actually give money for people to have children? Maybe that's not the best way to do it. Maybe you could just do it more through tax cuts and sort of that. But the point is, Donald Trump, once again, is pointing at something that is a real issue. We should want more children. They're cool. They're fun. You should want to build families. That is the building block of everything. And when the shit hits the fan, you turn to your family and not to the government, although that's not the way the left wants it. So we have this incredible moment right now. This is how I've been ending every show, because I just fundamentally believe it. We can get through this nonsense. We can put the wokesters aside. Hopefully those of us on the right who want a wide tent right movement that will accept the libs working with the conservatives, because we're all into freedom, can push back on whatever nefarious forces there are over there. And then we will have a government that will not use force, that will not use fear. It will actually work for us, because we will have done the work for ourselves to get the government we truly deserve. Jordan Peterson, ladies and gentlemen.
It's very important in this time, I think, to understand what this means. So Moses is a leader. He's the archetypal leader. And he realizes his responsibility in the encounter with the burning bush, which is something that attracts his attention, that he takes with great seriousness, and that transforms him. And so then he becomes the leader who stands up against the tyrant and frees the slaves and takes them through chaos into the desert. And his temptation as leader is to use force. In the Gospels, of course, Christ forgoes power altogether. The temptation in the desert, one of the three temptations, is the temptation for use of power. So one of the things that maybe we could conclude from all this, given the context of what you said, is that you can tell the tyrants, they use fear and compulsion. Mm-hmm. And they don't use invitation. So one of the rules we put together for ARC was invitation only. Play. We're going to do this playfully. Yeah. And we're not going to use force or fear, ever. You have to use invitation. And so I don't know what you think about that. Imagine it's the distinguishing characteristic between the wannabe tyrants and the true leaders. The true leaders say, here's an offer. Would you accept this of your own free will? And the tyrants say, the apocalypse is coming, and everything, and we are allowed to do everything to forestall it. Right, including control you and everything that you do.
Man, is he as good as ever? Is that how you end the show properly? Like, that is it right there. And what have we illustrated throughout this show? Donald Trump is now making the offer. Donald Trump is basically saying, here's America. I love it. MAGA fits all sorts of people. That's the thing, because it's based in freedom that will push all of the crazies to the side. Maybe that. How about I'll do a biblical thing. Maybe that's what splitting the Red Sea is all about. And then the free people can walk through and go from slavery to the promised land. Huh? How about that? That's pretty good. I'm going to use that one again. I'm going to clean it up a little bit and use it again. That's the point. That's the point. So we've lived through 4 years of people using fear. My God, someone's going to cough on you and you're going to die and kill everyone you know. We've done that. Oh my God, the white supremacists are coming. And they don't really seem to be white supremacists, and some of them are Latino, but they're coming for you. Enough of the fear, because the fear is what leads to people turning to bad people. And how about we focus on the good stuff and the good people, and they're out there, and I promise you just that. One of them just walked into the studio. His name is David Zucker, the legendary producer and writer of literally my two favorite comedies, Airplane and Naked Gun. We're going to be sitting down. He's done some other stuff too. We'll talk about that. Did you bring a whoopee cushion or anything? You got anything funny? You going to say anything funny during this?
This is going to be completely serious.
Oh, we're going to do it. Oh.
This is going to be I'm done with the laughs.
Yeah. All right. Well, he's decided to become a very serious person, and we're going to do a very serious sit down, which will air on Saturday. So, goodbye.